I moved to England from Africa. I was around the age of 13. I moved here and went into year 9. So we moved from Africa to Chester. And if any of you have ever been to Chester, you know that it's predominantly white. It's a lot better now in terms of diversity. There's, a lot more representation in the city. But when I first moved in 2005, it was very predominantly white. To give you an example of this, or to, give you a clearer picture of this, the school I went to was a school of 2,000 students, and there was only about 4 Black people, including myself, in the entire school. So that's just so you can get a better picture of, the scenario, basically. So one day I'm coming back from school and I was in my full school uniform. Obviously, I was walking back home from school, meaning that there were a lot of other students as well around me. So it was just very obvious that we're all just going to our prospective homes, after finishing school. My school wasn't actually that far away from where I lived at all. It was about a 10-minute walk, if that. It was in the same neighborhood. So I wasn't far from home at all. But on my way, I get stopped by a police car. So my first thought was, I'm getting hit on. I was clearly naive and very full of myself because in this entire scenario, I thought I was getting hit on. So this police officer is asking me where I live, asking me my name, asking me literally a bunch of questions. And when I said, I live around here, I'm actually not too far from home, they even went as far as asking me, well, what's the name of your street type thing. So again, I'm thinking, is he asking me the name of my street so he can have an excuse to give me a lift home? Or again, thinking that I'm getting hit on, thinking that this police officer is willing to risk it all just for little old me. Why was I so naive and why was I so big-headed? But actually, I kind of miss having that mindset. I miss the innocence. I miss the not knowing, because I'd never really experienced anything like that. I'd never been profiled before. I'd never, been stopped by the cops just to be asked questions. It was just not something I'd ever really experienced. I mean, obviously, if he was hitting on me, that's still pretty bad considering I'm in my school uniform and I was a 14-year-old and he's a grown man. But in my mind at the time, I was more flattered than offended. And it was literally only a few months ago as I was sat in my living room, I was watching the news and the George Floyd thing had just happened. And I don't even know what made the thought cross my mind, but I suddenly remembered that story. And I was just like, oh yeah, that's what was happening. And it makes more sense. When you think about it, it actually makes more sense that that's what was happening rather than what I thought was happening. But yeah, it took that realization of, oh, okay. So this stuff has been happening to me since that age, since I was in an area where I was different and I wasn't the norm and anymore. And it saddened me. Obviously, I've had other experiences that are actually more outright and more obvious since then. But that was just, I think, my first taste of being in a new country, of looking different to the people around me and being treated differently because of it. And that story, I think, will always stick with me. Like I said, it's a story that I always remembered, but I always remembered it for the wrong reasons. Not that the reasons now are good, but it just made me realize it doesn't matter. The things that people say about, what were you doing? What were you wearing? I was literally a 14-year-old girl in my school uniform, just walking home. And even that was cause for somebody to want to stop and ask me questions. So my message is always just think about the little things you're doing. No matter who you're around, no matter who you're interacting with, just always be mindful of the little things and also always speak up for people when you do see something like that. Because I was surrounded by adults, by other children, by, whatever, and nobody said anything. So just be mindful, just be that person that's always looking out for this. Don't be a vigilante. That's not what I'm saying, but do be somebody that stands up for justice and that stands up for what is right. But yeah, thank you for listening to my story.